Number. Part 1. The Champion's Arrival. The transport ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel above Valcora Prime, and Nari pressed her face against the viewport. The planet below glowed with cities that stretched across entire continents. Towers of crystal and metal reached toward the sky like fingers grasping for the stars. She had seen many worlds in her 10 years as a mercenary. But nothing quite like this. Beautiful, isn't it? Mira asked from the seat beside her. Her friend and technician had insisted on coming along for this contract. The Valkorian Empire. 47 star systems under one rule. Nari nodded but said nothing. Something about this job felt wrong. The payment was too high. A simple bodyguard contract for an emperor should not pay enough to buy a small moon. She had learned to trust her instincts, and right now they were screaming at her to be careful. The ship descended through layers of air traffic. Automated systems guided them toward the Imperial Palace, a massive structure that dominated the capital city. As they landed on a private platform, Nari checked her equipment one final time. Her combat blade hung at her hip, its edge sharp enough to cut through steel. The armor she wore was standard issue from Earth's Orbital Defense Corps. Nothing fancy but reliable. 2 Valkorian guards met them at the landing pad. They were tall and thin, with pale blue skin and eyes that seemed too large for their faces. Nari noted how they carried themselves. They moved carefully, as if their own bodies were fragile things that might break. The human called Nari? One guard asked, in accented but clear language. That's me. Emperor Taman requests your immediate presence. Please follow us. They walked through corridors of polished stone that gleamed like mirrors. Valkorian nobles stopped to stare as Nari passed. She heard their whispers. Some sounded curious. Others sounded afraid. She kept her expression neutral and her hand away from her weapon. Starting trouble on the first day would be unprofessional. The throne room was massive. Pillars carved with the history of the empire supported a ceiling so high it disappeared into shadows. At the far end, Emperor Taman sat on a throne of black metal. He looked old, far older than any human could survive. His skin had a gray tinge, and his movements were slow and painful. Beside the emperor stood 3 others. A young man with sharp features and suspicious eyes. A woman in a white coat who held some kind of data device. And an older man whose formal robes marked him as an advisor. Approach, the emperor said. His voice was weak, but commanded respect. Nari walked forward until she stood 20 paces from the throne. She did not kneel. The contract had specified she was an independent contractor, not a subject of the empire. You are from Earth, the emperor said. It was not a question. A death world with gravity 1.3 times the galactic standard. Your species evolved under conditions that would kill most of us within days. Earth is home, Nari replied simply. We manage. Manage. The emperor almost smiled. Our scientists tell us that humans can lift objects that would require our strongest warriors to use powered assistance. That your bones are dense enough to withstand impacts that would shatter ours. That your immune systems fight off diseases that ravage entire planets. Nari said nothing. She wondered where this was going. The young man stepped forward. I am Prince Quan, heir to the throne. My father speaks of human strength, but I have seen no proof. Your species only recently developed faster than light travel. You are primitives, playing at civilization. Quan, the emperor said sharply. Remember your manners. Let him speak, Nari said calmly. Doubt is natural. I would doubt too if positions were reversed. The woman in the white coat moved closer. I am Princess Isul. I have studied your species for 3 years. Your biology is remarkable. May I ask you to demonstrate something for us? Depends on what you want demonstrated. Princess Isul gestured to one of the guards. He stepped forward carrying a metal case. When he set it down, Nari heard servos in his exoskeleton strain with the weight. The guard backed away quickly. This case contains equipment for the Imperial fleet. It weighs 230 kilograms. Our soldiers require powered armor to move it. Could you lift it, without assistance? Nari walked to the case and tested its weight with one hand. It was heavy, but manageable. She bent her knees, gripped the handles, and lifted. The case came up smoothly. She held it at chest height for a moment, then set it down gently. The throne room went silent. Impossible, Prince Quan whispered. She barely strained. Not impossible, Princess Isul said, her eyes bright with excitement. Simply human. Emperor Taman leaned forward in his throne. Nari of Earth, I did not bring you here simply to guard my person. I brought you here because my empire is dying. That got Nari's attention. Explain. Our royal bloodline carries a genetic curse from wars fought 10,000 years ago. Each generation grows weaker. My children struggle to survive childbirth. My grandchildren are born sick and frail. In 2 more generations, the imperial line will collapse completely. I'm sorry for your troubles, Nari said carefully. But I'm a soldier, not a doctor. How can I help? The old advisor spoke for the first time. We have searched 200 species across the galaxy. Only one possesses the genetic strength to save us. Only one species evolved on a world harsh enough to forge bodies that can withstand anything. Your species. Human. Your strength. Your resilience. Your genes. Understanding hit Nari like a punch to the gut. You want to use human DNA to fix your bloodline. More than that. Emperor Taman said. We need a human to join the royal family. To bear children with royal blood. Mixed with human strength. To create a new generation that can survive. No. Nari's voice was flat. I'm not a broodmare for your empire. Find someone else. There is no one else, Princess Isul said desperately. We have studied this for decades. Only humans have compatible biology and sufficient genetic vigor. Please, just hear us out. I have heard enough. My contract was for bodyguard work, not this. I'm leaving. Wait. The Emperor raised one trembling hand. I ask only that you complete one trial first. An ancient test of worthiness. If you succeed, I will grant you any reward within my power. If you then wish to leave, I will provide a ship and payment triple what we originally agreed. All I ask is one chance to prove what I say is true. Nari stopped at the doorway. What kind of trial? The trial of the Apex Guardian. An ancient rite where warriors prove themselves against the Empire's ultimate weapon. No champion has survived in 300 years. You want me to fight some kind of monster? As a test? If you defeat it, you prove that humans possess the strength we desperately need. If you refuse, you prove us wrong, and we will search elsewhere. 300 years. Nari. 300 years since anyone even wounded the Guardian. But I believe a human from a death world can do what no Valkorian could. Nari looked at Mira, who shrugged slightly. The decision was hers to make. Triple payment just for trying this trial. Whether I agree to your breeding program or not, you have my word, as Emperor. Fine. When does this trial happen? Tomorrow at dawn, Prince Quan said. His voice carried a mix of hope and fear. May your earth gods protect you, human. You will need them. Nari smiled without humor. I don't believe in gods. I believe in training and sharp blades. That's always been enough. As guards escorted her to guest quarters, Nari wondered what she had just agreed to. A trial that no one had survived in 3 centuries. An emperor, desperate enough to offer anything. A dying empire with nowhere else to turn. Tomorrow she would face this Apex Guardian. Tonight she would sharpen her blade and prepare her mind. Whatever came next, she would face it the way she faced everything. With her eyes open and her blade ready. Part 2. The Impossible Trial. Nari woke before dawn to find Mira already awake and working at a portable computer. Her friend's face was pale in the blue light of the screen. You need to see this, Mira said without looking up. I hacked into the palace database last night. Nari, this trial they want you to do. It's not just dangerous. It's designed to be lethal. Nari sat up and looked at the screen. Files scrolled past showing records of previous champions. 47 names. All dead. All killed by something called the Apex Guardian. Images showed warriors in full battle armor, their bodies broken and torn. They sent their best fighters, Mira continued. Military champions. Elite guards. Each one had powered armor, energy shields, plasma weapons. None of them lasted more than 5 minutes. What exactly is this Guardian? Mira pulled up a biological scan. The creature on the screen made Nari's blood run cold. It stood 15 feet tall, with a body that seemed to be made of muscle and metal fused together, 6 limbs ending in claws, a head with too many eyes, and a mouth full of teeth like knives. Cybernetic enhancements covered half its body. The Valkorians created it 10,000 years ago during their expansion wars. They took the most dangerous predators from 20 different planets and combined their DNA. Then they added cybernetic augmentation. It was supposed to be the ultimate weapon. Now it's a test that no one passes. Why do they keep using it if everyone dies? Tradition? Pride? Maybe desperation. The files say that anyone who defeats the Apex Guardian proves themselves worthy of joining the Imperial Bloodline. But that hasn't happened in 3 centuries. Nari studied the creature's anatomy. She looked for weak points. The cybernetic parts created seams in the armor. There were gaps where biological tissue met machine, but hitting those gaps while the thing was trying to kill her would be nearly impossible. They expect me to die, Nari said quietly. That's why they offered triple payment. They hope I wound it enough to prove humans are strong. Then they'll find another human to make their deal with. We should leave, Mira urged. Take the ship and go. This is insane. Can't. I gave my word I would try the trial. Nari stood and began putting on her armor. Besides, I want to see this thing for myself. If it's as dangerous as they claim, maybe it's time someone put it down. 2 hours later, Nari stood at the entrance to the Crimson Arena. The structure had been built deep beneath the palace, carved from red stone that gave the place its name. Thousands of seats rose in tiers around a circular fighting floor. Nearly every seat was filled with Valkorian nobles in their finest clothes. They had come to watch her die. Princess Isul met her at the entrance. The scientist's hands shook as she handed Nari a communication device. This is just a formality, Isul said. If you wish to surrender, press the button, and the Guardian will be recalled. There is no shame in survival. Has anyone ever pressed it? Twice. The Guardian killed them before the recall could activate. It moves very fast. Good to know. Nari clipped the device to her belt and checked her blade one final time. The weapon was 3 feet of folded steel, sharp enough to cut through bone. It was all she would take into the arena. No armor? Armor would slow me down. Shields take power cells that add weight. Ranged weapons need time to aim. If that thing is as fast as you say, I need to be faster. You're going to fight it with just a sword? Not a sword. A blade. There's a difference. Nari didn't explain further. Isul wouldn't understand the philosophy behind the weapon, how it became an extension of the warrior's body, how proper training made it faster than any gun. Emperor Taemin's voice echoed through the arena from his viewing box. People of the Valkorian Empire, today we witness the trial of the Apex Guardian. The human called Nari has volunteered to face our ultimate test. Should she succeed, she will prove her worthiness to stand among our greatest warriors. Should she fail, she will be honored as a brave soul who dared to try. Nice speech, Nari thought. Very formal. Still expects me to die, though. She walked onto the red stone floor. The arena was huge, at least 100 meters across. The stone was stained dark in places. Old blood that had soaked too deep to clean. The crowd went quiet as she reached the center. A gate on the far side began to open. The sound of metal grinding against metal echoed off the walls. Then Nari heard it. A breathing sound. Deep and wet. Something massive moved in the darkness beyond the gate. The Apex Guardian emerged into the light. The images had not done it justice. The creature was a nightmare made flesh and steel. Its body moved with terrible grace, muscles sliding under skin that looked tough as armor. The cybernetic parts gleamed, powered by some internal source. All 6 limbs touched the ground as it stalked forward. But Nari knew it could rear up on its back legs to strike. Those too many eyes focused on her. The mouth opened slightly, revealing teeth that could bite a person in half. A low growl rumbled through the arena, so deep she felt it in her chest. The crowd held its breath. In the viewing box, Prince Quan leaned forward. Princess Isul covered her mouth with both hands. Even Emperor Taemin looked tense, his old hands gripping the arms of his chair. The Guardian charged. It moved faster than anything that size should move. 1 second it was 30 meters away. The next it was on her. Claws swept toward her head. Jaws opened wide. The crowd gasped. Nari dropped and rolled. Claws passed through the space where she had been standing. She came up, running, circling to the creature's left. It spun with her, impossibly quick. A limb lashed out. She ducked under it and kept moving. The Guardian roared. The sound was so loud that several nobles in the front rows covered their ears. Observation windows, high in the arena walls, cracked from the vibration. Nari watched and learned. She counted its attack patterns, watched how the limbs moved, studied the way the cybernetic parts connected to biological tissue. The creature was fast and strong, but it was predictable. It had been bred for power, not strategy. After 30 seconds of dodging, she had seen enough. The Guardian reared up on its back legs for a devastating downward strike. All 4 front limbs raised high. In that moment, its entire body stretched. The cybernetic armor plates at the base of its skull separated by just a few centimeters. A tiny gap. A weakness. Nari saw it and moved. She sprinted forward, directly at the creature. The crowd screamed. This was suicide. Running toward the Guardian was exactly what every champion before her had done. And they had all died. But Nari was not running at the Guardian. She was running at the specific point where she needed to be in exactly 2 more seconds. Time seemed to slow. The front limbs started their downward strike. Claws like swords descended toward her. But Nari had timed it perfectly. She slid on her knees across the blood-stained stone, passing beneath the creature's body. As she slid, she drew her blade and thrust upward with every ounce of strength her earthborn muscles could provide. The blade entered the gap at the base of the Guardian's skull and drove through the neural cluster that controlled its entire body. 3 feet of folded steel penetrated deep into the creature's brain. The Guardian's roar cut off mid-sound. Its body went rigid. The massive limbs crashed down onto empty stone as Nari finished her slide and rolled clear. For one long moment, nothing moved. Then the Apex Guardian fell. 15 feet and tons of bioengineered nightmare crashed to the arena floor with a sound like thunder. It twitched once, twice, then went still. Nari stood up slowly. She pulled her blade free and flicked the blood from its edge. The weapon went back into its sheath in a single, smooth motion. The arena was completely silent. 47 champions had died here. 300 years without a victor. The ultimate weapon of the Valkorian Empire. Undefeated for longer than most empires existed. And a human had killed it in a single strike. Emperor Taemin rose from his seat. His old hands shook as he gripped the railing of his viewing box. His voice cracked when he spoke. Impossible. Prince Quan simply stared. His mouth open. Princess Isul laughed. It was a sound between joy and hysteria. I told you humans were different. But I never imagined this. Slowly, like a wave spreading across water, the crowd began to react. Some nobles stood. Others shouted. A few fainted. The arena filled with noise. Emperor Taemin made his way down to the arena floor. Guards rushed to help him, but he waved them away. He walked across the red stone, past the corpse of the guardian, until he stood before Nari. Then the Emperor of the Valkorian Empire, ruler of 47 star systems, knelt. You have proven yourself beyond any doubt. You are the apex, the strongest warrior to ever stand in this arena. His voice grew stronger. Our bloodline requires your strength. Nari of Earth, you must bear the heirs of Valkoria. Join us. Save us. I beg you. Nari looked down at the kneeling emperor. Then she looked up at the viewing box where Mira stood, her friend's face showing shock and something else. Pride, maybe. We need to talk, Nari said. Somewhere private. And this time, I want the complete truth. All of it. No more surprises. You will have it, Emperor Taemin promised. Whatever you wish to know. As guards helped the emperor stand, Prince Quan climbed down to the arena floor. He approached Nari carefully, as if she might be as dangerous as the creature she had just killed. Maybe she was. I doubted you, Quan said. I thought humans were primitive, weak. I was wrong. Yes, Nari agreed simply. You were. She walked past him toward the exit. Behind her, nobles gathered around the guardian's corpse, unable to believe what they had witnessed. Mira met her at the entrance with a towel and water. That was incredible, terrifying, and incredible. It was necessary, Nari said. You're considering it? I'm listening. There's a difference. Nari wiped blood from her hands. But Mira, I saw something in that emperor's eyes. Real desperation. Real fear. This empire really is dying. So what do? We hear them out, get the full story. Then I decide. Nari looked back at the arena. But on my terms this time. Not theirs. Part 3. The genetic proposition. The private chamber was quiet compared to the chaos of the arena. Nari sat at a long table, with Mira beside her. Across from them sat Emperor Taemin, Princess Isul, Prince Quan, and Lord Hyun, the royal advisor. Between them, a holographic display showed images that made Nari's stomach turn. Valkorian children in medical pods. Babies connected to machines that breathed for them. Young nobles, who looked like they were 90 years old, but were barely 20. The images kept coming. Each one worse than the last. This is the truth, Princess Isul said quietly. This is what our bloodline has become. Emperor Taemin's voice was heavy with pain. My daughter died giving birth 2 years ago. Her child lived for 3 days. My nephew's wife lost 4 babies before they stopped trying. Every year the numbers grow worse. More deaths. More stillbirths. More children who cannot survive outside medical facilities. How did this happen? Mira asked. She had pulled out her computer and was taking notes. What caused the genetic degradation? War, Lord Hyun answered. 10,000 years ago, during our expansion period, we used biological weapons against our enemies. The weapons were designed to attack specific genetic markers. What we did not know was that those same markers were present in our own royal bloodline. A hidden genetic similarity. The weapons worked as designed, but they poisoned us as well. The effects were slow at first, Princess Isul continued. A few more complications in childbirth, slightly weaker immune systems. We thought it was normal variation, but it was actually a genetic cascade that has been building for 100 centuries. Now, it has reached a critical point. Nari studied the medical data. Even with her limited knowledge, she could see the pattern. Each generation showed increased genetic damage. The projections showed that within 50 years, the royal bloodline would be unable to produce viable offspring at all. You said you searched 200 species, Nari said. Why didn't any of them work? Compatibility, Princess Isul explained. She pulled up new displays, showing genetic structures. Most species are too different from us. Their DNA cannot combine with ours to produce living offspring. Of the 37 species that are compatible, their genetics are too weak. Mixing with them would only delay the collapse, not stop it. But humans are different, Quan added. He had been quiet until now, his earlier arrogance gone. Your species evolved under extreme conditions. High gravity, rapid climate changes, dangerous predators. Your bodies had to become strong, or you would have died out. Show her the comparison, Emperor Taman ordered. Princess Isul brought up 2 genetic displays side by side. One was labeled Valkorian, the other, human. Even Nari could see the differences. The human genetic structure was denser, more complex. Areas that showed damage and fragility in the Valkorian display showed robust, stable patterns in the human one. Your immune systems are extraordinary, Isul said with clear admiration in her voice. You carry antibodies for diseases that have killed billions across the galaxy. Your cellular repair mechanisms work 3 times faster than ours. Your bones, your muscles, your organs. Everything about human biology is designed for survival under the harshest conditions. We ran simulations, Lord Hyun said. Thousands of them. A human Valkorian hybrid would have genetic stability we have not seen in our bloodline for 5,000 years. The children would be strong, healthy, and most importantly, viable. They could have children of their own without the genetic degradation continuing. Nari sat back in her chair. You want me to have children with members of your royal family? To create this hybrid bloodline? Yes, Emperor Taman said simply. I know how it sounds. I know what we are asking. But I have watched 3 of my grandchildren die. I have seen my own children waste away. I would give anything, including my pride, to stop this. What exactly are you offering in return? Mira asked. Always practical. Always thinking about the details. Anything within my power, the Emperor replied. Titles, land, a place in the royal succession, wealth beyond measure. Name it, and it is yours. I don't want any of that, Nari said. Titles mean nothing to me. I'm a soldier, not a noble. Then what do you want? Quan asked. He sounded genuinely curious. Nari was quiet for a long moment. She thought about the children in those medical pods, about an empire that spanned 47 star systems, slowly dying from within, about the desperation in the Emperor's eyes. I want time to think about this, and I want complete honesty. No more secrets, no more surprises. Agreed, Emperor Taman said immediately. I also want to understand what this would actually mean. If I agreed, what would my life look like? Would I be expected to marry someone? Have children and then leave? Stay here forever? Princess Isul leaned forward. We would need multiple children. At least 3. Possibly more. The genetic diversity would strengthen the bloodline faster. As for marriage, that would be your choice. Some human cultures value formal marriage. We would respect your traditions. And the children? What happens to them? They would be raised as royalty, Quan said. Educated in both human and Valkorian culture. They would have every advantage we could provide. And they would be eligible for the throne. That made Nari pause. My children could become emperor? The strongest, wisest, most capable heir becomes emperor, Lord Hyun explained. Blood matters, but merit matters more. If your child proved themselves worthy, yes, they could rule the empire. Mira touched Nari's arm. Can we have a moment alone? The Valkorians left the room. As soon as the door closed, Mira turned to Nari. This is insane. You know that, right? I know. They're asking you to become some kind of breeding stock for their empire. I know that too. But you're considering it. Nari sighed. I keep thinking about those children in the medical pods, and about what happens if this empire collapses. 47 star systems. Trillions of people. If the royal bloodline fails, there will be civil war. Rival factions fighting for control. How many people die in that scenario? That's not your responsibility. Maybe not. But I saw what I saw. They're not lying about the genetic damage. And I killed their ultimate weapon in one strike. That proved humans have what they need. So what? You feel obligated now? I feel like I have a choice to make. Walk away and let them find another human to ask. Or stay and set my own terms. Mira shook her head. If you do this, I'm staying with you. Someone needs to make sure they keep their promises. You would do that? We've been through worse together. Remember the colony rebellion on Taros 3? Nari smiled slightly. That was bad. This is worse. But I'm with you. They called the Valkorians back into the room. Emperor Taman looked at Nari hopefully. I want to meet the people I would potentially be having children with, Nari said. I'm not agreeing to anything until I know who they are as people, not just as royalty. Of course, the Emperor said. We would never force you to. I'm not finished. Nari's voice cut through his words. If I do this, I want guarantees. Legal protections for myself and any children. I want them to have dual citizenship, human and Valkorian. I want them to know both cultures equally. And I want veto power over how they're raised. Agreed. I also want any human who comes here to help with this genetic program to have full legal rights. No exploitation. No forced participation. If other humans volunteer, they get the same protections I'm asking for. Princess Isul nodded vigorously. That's more than fair. I'll draft the legislation myself. And one more thing. Nari stood up. I choose who I have children with based on merit, not rank. I don't care if someone is first in line for the throne or a minor noble. If they want me to consider them, they prove they're worthy. Prince Quan frowned. What kind of proof? I'll design trials. Not combat necessarily, but tests of character, courage, integrity. The kind of qualities I'd want in the father of my children. Anyone who wants to participate goes through the trials. If they pass, I'll consider them. If they fail, they're out. The room went silent. Lord Hyun looked shocked. Emperor Taman looked thoughtful. You would test the royal heirs like common soldiers? Lord Hyun asked, his voice tight. I would test anyone who asks me to bear their children. Royal blood doesn't impress me. The Guardian had royal blood too, and I killed it in one strike. I like it, Princess Isul said suddenly. It's perfect. The strongest genetics should come from the strongest individuals. Not just physically, but mentally and morally. Emperor Taman was quiet for a long time. Finally he spoke. If I agree to this, you will participate in the program? You will help save our bloodline? Nari looked at Mira, who nodded slightly. Then she looked back at the Emperor. On my terms, with my conditions, and with the understanding that I can walk away if those conditions are violated. Done. The Emperor extended his hand across the table. We have an agreement. Nari shook his hand. His grip was weak, his skin like paper. This old man was dying, and he knew it. He was fighting to save his people, the only way he could. When do we start? Quan asked. Tomorrow, Nari said. I'll need tonight to design the first trial. And to speak with Earth's government. They need to know what's happening here. Will they approve? Lord Hyun asked nervously. That depends on how we present it. But if we're honest about the situation and the protections we're putting in place, I think they'll support it. Earth has always believed in helping others when we can. As the meeting ended and the Valkorians filed out, Princess Isul stopped beside Nari. Thank you, she said quietly. You could have walked away, taken your payment, and forgotten about us. But you stayed. I'm not doing this for gratitude, Nari replied. I'm doing it because it's the right thing to do. Those children in the medical pods deserve better. They do, Isuel agreed. And now, because of you, they might actually get it. That night, Nari stood at the window of her quarters, looking out at the city lights of Valcora Prime. Mira worked at her computer, already drafting the legal documents they would need. Somewhere in the palace, the royal family was probably arguing about what had just happened. Nari had killed a monster today, and then she had agreed to something that might be even more challenging. Creating a new generation. Building a bridge between two species. Saving an empire from its own genetic curse. She touched the blade at her hip. The weapon had served her well in the arena. But the trials ahead would require different kinds of strength. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. And Nari would face it the same way she faced everything. With courage, honesty, and an unwillingness to compromise on what mattered. The city lights gleamed like stars. Somewhere out there, the future was taking shape. And for better or worse, Nari was now part of it. Part 4. The Trials of Worth. 6 months had passed since Nari agreed to help the Valkorian Empire. In that time, everything had changed. She stood now in the training hall she had designed, watching Prince Quan complete the obstacle course for the 3rd time this week. The course was brutal by Valkorian standards. Walls to climb without powered assistance. Weights to lift using only natural strength. Endurance runs that left most participants gasping for breath. Quan had completed it every time. More importantly, he had never complained. Never asked for special treatment because of his royal status. He simply showed up each day and did the work. Time, Mira called from her position by the clock. 15 minutes, 42 seconds. That's 8 seconds faster than last week. Quan collapsed onto a bench, his pale blue skin darker with exertion. I thought it would get easier, he said between breaths. It doesn't get easier, Nari replied. You just get stronger. Over the past months, Nari had designed 5 different trials. Each tested a different quality. Physical strength and endurance were only part of it. She had created scenarios that tested courage, integrity, compassion, and wisdom. Any noble who wanted to be considered had to pass all 5. 47 nobles had attempted the trials so far. Only 3 had passed all 5 tests. Prince Quan had been the first. He had proven himself not just physically capable, but morally sound. During the trial of compassion, he had sacrificed his own completion time to help an injured commoner who had been caught in a staged accident. That decision had cost him first place in that particular trial, but it had earned Nari's respect. Lord Junho had been the second to pass. He came from a minor noble house, one with little political power, but during an actual emergency, when a section of the training facility had experienced an oxygen leak, Junho had stayed behind to ensure everyone else evacuated safely. He had nearly died from oxygen deprivation. That kind of selfless courage was exactly what Nari was looking for. The 3rd person to pass all the trials had surprised everyone. Princess Isul, the scientist who had first studied human genetics, had asked to participate. Not to bear children herself, she had explained, but to prove that the trials were fair, to show that rank and gender did not matter, only merit. She had passed every test with determination and intelligence that impressed even Nari. You're ready, Nari told Quan now. You've passed all 5 trials. You've proven your worth. Quan looked up at her. Does this mean you'll agree? You'll have a child with me? Juan. It means I'll consider it. I want to speak with you more first. Not as a trial, but as people. I need to know who you are. Beyond the tests. I understand. They walked together through the palace gardens. It was evening, and the 2 suns of Valcora Prime were setting in brilliant colors. Quan had changed from his training clothes into more comfortable robes. Why did you volunteer for this? Nari asked. As Crown Prince, you could have demanded the right to be first. But you went through every trial, like everyone else, because you were right to demand it, Quan said. Before you arrived, I believed I was entitled to everything, because of my birth, that my royal blood made me special. He paused by a fountain. Then I watched you kill the Guardian in one strike, and I realized that real strength has nothing to do with bloodlines. It comes from who you are and what you're willing to do. You've changed since I arrived. Everyone has changed. The entire empire is watching what happens here. Humans have begun arriving to study our culture. Some of your people have volunteered to join the genetic program. Princess Isul has established cultural exchange centers. The empire is transforming. It was true. In 6 months, 17 more humans had arrived. 3 of them were women who had partnered with Valkorian nobles after similar trials. The first human Valkorian pregnancies had been confirmed last month. Medical scans showed the hybrid fetuses were developing perfectly, with none of the genetic abnormalities that plagued pure Valkorian children. There's been resistance, Nari said. She had heard the whispers, seen the protests. Of course, change always meets resistance. Some nobles believe we are contaminating the bloodline rather than saving it. They call it an invasion, a corruption of Valkorian purity. How do you answer them? I tell them to look at the medical data, to see the healthy children that will be born, to understand that purity means nothing if it leads to extinction. Quan's voice grew passionate. We were dying, Nari. Slowly, painfully dying. You offered us hope. Anyone who cannot see that is a fool. They sat on a bench overlooking the garden. Nari had learned to appreciate these quiet moments. Her life had become complicated in ways she never anticipated. She was no longer just a mercenary. She was a symbol, a bridge between 2 species, a key to the future of an entire empire. I'm ready to agree, she said finally. Quan went very still. You're certain? You've proven yourself worthy. You're strong, principled, and you genuinely care about your people. Those are the qualities I want in the father of my child. I'm honored. Quan's voice was thick with emotion. I promise. I will be the best father and partner I can be. I'm not promising partnership, Nari said gently but firmly. I'm agreeing to have a child with you. How we handle the relationship beyond that is something we'll figure out as we go. I understand. That's fair. They sat in silence for a while, watching the stars appear in the darkening sky. Tomorrow, they would make the official announcement. The Empire would celebrate. Medical teams would begin the process. But tonight was just 2 people, from different worlds, making a choice that would change everything. A week later, Nari stood before Lord Junho in a private meeting room. The young noble looked nervous, which was unusual for someone who had shown such courage during the trials. You wanted to speak with me? Nari asked. Yes. I wanted to ask if you would consider having a child with me as well. Nari studied him. Junho came from the house of Solara, a minor family with little political influence. During the past months, she had learned more about him. He worked in the Imperial Fleet as a tactical officer. He was known for his fairness and his willingness to stand up for what was right, even when it cost him politically. Tell me why, Nari said. Because I believe in what you're doing. Not just the genetic program, but the idea that merit should matter more than birth. If we're going to create a new generation, they should be taught those values from the beginning. You know that any child we have would not be high in the succession. Prince Quan's child will be the first hybrid. That child will have priority for the throne. I don't care about succession, Junho said. I care about being a good father. About raising a child who understands both human and Valkorian culture. About building this bridge. You've started, Nari smiled. You passed the trials with the highest scores after Quan. You nearly died saving people during that oxygen leak. You're exactly the kind of person I want my children to know. Does that mean yes? It means I need time to think about it. Having children with two different partners is a big decision. I need to consider what that means for everyone involved. I understand. Take all the time you need. As Junho left, Mira entered the room with her computer. You're going to say yes to him too, aren't you? Her friend asked. Probably. He's good people. The kind of father any child would be lucky to have. The nobles are going to lose their minds. The crown prince and a minor lord both fathering children with you? Let them. This was never about politics. It's about genetics and character. Mira pulled up a file. Speaking of genetics, Princess Isul sent over the latest projections. If you have children with both Quan and Junho, and if the other human women continue their partnerships, within 3 generations, the genetic degradation will be completely reversed. The Valkorian royal bloodline will be stable for the first time in 5,000 years. That's good news. It's incredible news. You're not just helping one family, Nari. You're saving an entire genetic legacy. 2 months later, the announcement came. Nari was pregnant. The child's father was Prince Quan. Medical scans showed a perfectly healthy fetus with a genetic profile that amazed the scientists. The baby had inherited the best traits from both species. Strong bones, enhanced immune system, superior physical capabilities. The Empire celebrated for 3 days. Across all 47 star systems, people watched the medical updates. This child represented hope, a future that had seemed impossible 6 months ago, but not everyone celebrated. Prince Sunho, Quan's younger brother, had attempted the trials and failed. During the test of integrity, he had tried to cheat by bribing other participants. Nari had discovered it immediately and disqualified him. Sunho had been humiliated, his pride destroyed. And now, his older brother would father the first hybrid heir. Late one night, Sunho attempted to force his way into Nari's quarters. He had 6 guards with him, all loyal to his faction. They demanded she give him the same opportunity she had given Quan. The guards never stood a chance. Nari disarmed all 6 in less than a minute. She broke no bones, but they would be sore for days. When Sunho tried to grab her, she put him on the floor so fast he didn't see the move coming. You failed the trials, Nari said calmly, her knee on his back. Not because you weren't strong enough, but because you have no honor, no integrity, and I will never have a child with someone like you. Emperor Taemin had Sunho exiled from the palace. The younger prince's supporters were removed from positions of power. The message was clear. Merit mattered. Character mattered. Royal blood alone meant nothing. As Nari's pregnancy progressed, she agreed to have a second child with Lord Junho. The announcement caused controversy in the noble circles, but Emperor Taemin supported her decision completely. Junho's family, once considered minor and unimportant, suddenly found themselves elevated in status. Princess Isul documented everything. The medical data, the social changes, the cultural fusion that was happening across the empire. She wrote papers that would be studied for generations about this pivotal moment in Valkorian history. You've accomplished something extraordinary, Isul told Nari one day. They were in the medical center for a routine checkup. You've not only saved our genetics, you've changed our entire social structure. Noble houses that were considered lesser now have opportunities they never had before. And it's all because you refused to accept the old ways. I just did what made sense, Nari replied. That's what makes it so powerful. You didn't overthink it. You simply said that worth should be measured by character and actions, not bloodlines and titles. And you made everyone prove it. On the monitor, Nari could see her baby moving. A healthy, strong child that carried the future of 2 species in her genes. What will you name her? Isul asked. Hana, Nari said. It means one in an Earth language. She's the first. The beginning of something new. It's perfect. 8 months after Nari had killed the Apex Guardian, she gave birth to Hana. The delivery was easy compared to what Valkorian women endured. The baby was strong, healthy, and beautiful. She had her mother's dark hair and her father's pale blue skin. Her eyes were a color that didn't exist in either species. A unique blend of both. When the medical staff tested Hana's grip strength, the baby crushed the measuring device. She was less than an hour old, and already stronger than most adult Valkorians. Prince Quan held his daughter with tears running down his face. "She's perfect." "She is," Nari agreed. "And she's just the beginning." Part 5. The New Dynasty. 18 years had passed since Nari first arrived on Valkora Prime. She stood now in the war room of the Imperial Palace, studying tactical displays that showed enemy fleet movements. At her side stood her eldest daughter, Hana, who wore the uniform of a military commander despite being barely old enough to vote by Earth standards. "They have 43 ships in the vanguard," Hana said, pointing to the display. "But look at the spacing. Too tight. If we hit them with coordinated strikes here and here, they'll collide with each other trying to maneuver." Admiral Junho, Nari's former partner and now one of the Empire's highest-ranking military officers, nodded approvingly. "Good eye. The Korthax Imperium fights with rigid formations. They lack adaptability. Then we use that against them," Hana replied. Nari watched her daughter work through the tactical problem and felt a mix of pride and concern. Hana had inherited her mother's combat instincts and her father Quan's strategic mind. At 18, she was already a legend in the fleet, but she was still young, still learning. The Korthax Imperium had declared war 3 months ago. They viewed the human-Valkorian hybrid program as a threat to galactic stability. What had started as a diplomatic protest had escalated into military action. The Korthax had attacked 3 border systems, expecting the traditional Valkorian response of careful, defensive tactics. Instead, they had encountered Hana's forces. Young, aggressive commanders who fought with a style the Korthax had never seen. Human adaptability, combined with Valkorian technology and resources, it was a combination the enemy was not prepared for. Emperor Quan entered the war room. He had aged well over the years, and ruling the empire had given him confidence and wisdom that showed in every movement. He was still Nari's partner, though they maintained separate residences. Their relationship was complicated, but strong. "Admiral Junho, Commander Hana, any updates?" Quan asked. "The Korthax fleet is moving into the Crimson Nebula sector," Junho reported. "They think the nebula will hide them from our sensors." "It won't," Hana said with a slight smile. "We've modified our scanning arrays with Earth-based algorithms. We can see right through the interference. Then we set a trap," Nari said. She had retired from active combat 5 years ago, but Quan still consulted her on military matters. "Let them think they're hidden. Position our fastest ships on the far side of the nebula. When they emerge, we hit them from 2 directions." "Agreed," Quan said. "Hana, you'll command the forward element. Junho, take the main fleet. I want this ended quickly." Over the years, Nari had borne 7 children. 3 with Quan, 2 with Junho, and 2 with other partners who had proven themselves worthy. Each child was extraordinary in their own way. Strong, intelligent, healthy. Everything the Valkorian bloodline had lacked for thousands of years. Beyond Nari's own children, over 2,000 hybrid children now existed across the empire. The genetic program had expanded beyond the royal family. Human volunteers and Valkorian partners had created a new generation that was transforming society. These hybrid children grew faster, learned quicker, and thought differently than pure Valkorians. They questioned old traditions. They pushed boundaries. They brought change wherever they went. The old noble houses had resisted at first. But as the hybrid children proved their worth, resistance had faded. Now, families competed to partner with humans. Earth had established a permanent embassy on Valkora Prime. Cultural exchange programs ran constantly. Princess Isul, now much older but still sharp, had documented everything. Her research papers on the hybrid genetics had won every scientific award the Empire offered. She had proven that genetic diversity was strength, that isolation led to stagnation. "Mother, I should go," Hana said, pulling Nari from her thoughts. "Be careful," Nari said. "The Korthax are desperate. Desperate enemies make mistakes, but they can also be dangerously unpredictable. I learned from the best," Hana replied with a grin. "You did kill the Apex Guardian in one strike. After all, that was 18 years ago. The Empire still talks about it. They call it the turning point, the moment everything changed." After Hana left, Nari walked the palace gardens with Mira. Her old friend had stayed by her side all these years, serving as an advisor, diplomat, and voice of reason. "Remember when this was just a bodyguard contract?" Mira asked. "I remember thinking the payment was too high. I should have known it would be complicated. Complicated is an understatement. You changed the course of galactic history." They sat by the same fountain where Nari and Quan had once talked about having their first child. So much had changed since then. "Do you regret it?" Mira asked. "No. It was the right choice. But sometimes, I miss the simplicity of just being a mercenary. You could never have stayed simple. You killed a creature that no one had defeated in 300 years. After that, everything else was inevitable." The battle at Crimson Nebula lasted 4 hours. Hana's tactics worked perfectly. The Korthax fleet emerged from the nebula directly into a crossfire. Their rigid formations collapsed under the coordinated assault. When they tried to retreat, they found Junho's fleet blocking their escape. The Korthax Supreme Commander, a proud warrior named Vrex, refused to surrender at first. His flagship led a desperate charge toward Hana's command ship. The two vessels exchanged fire at close range. Then something unexpected happened. Hana's ship deployed boarding pods. It was a human tactic, rarely used in modern space warfare. The Valkorians had always preferred to fight at range, using superior technology to avoid hand-to-hand combat. But humans had taught their hybrid children differently. Hana led the boarding action personally. When Nari heard about it later, her heart nearly stopped. Her daughter had led soldiers onto an enemy flagship in the middle of a battle. It was exactly the kind of aggressive, dangerous move that Nari herself would have made at that age. The boarding action was brutal but quick. Hana's forces fought through the Korthax ship deck by deck. The enemy had never experienced anything like it. Human Valkorian hybrids moving with speed and strength that seemed impossible. Hana found Supreme Commander Vrex on his command deck. He challenged her to single combat, expecting an easy victory. He was a trained warrior from a species known for their fighting prowess. The fight lasted exactly 47 seconds. Hana disarmed Vrex, broke his weapon, and put him on his knees without killing him. When he asked why she had spared him, Hana replied with words her mother had taught her. "Because victory doesn't always require death. Sometimes it requires wisdom." The war ended that day. Vrex surrendered his entire fleet. When the Korthax Imperium learned what had happened, they sued for peace. They had attacked, expecting to face a dying empire. Instead, they had encountered something new and dangerous. The treaty negotiations took 3 months. During that time, representatives from across the galaxy came to observe. They saw the hybrid children. They studied the genetic data. They learned about the transformation of the Valkorian Empire. 3 other alien civilizations quietly approached Earth and the Valkorian Empire. They too faced genetic problems. They too needed help. Princess Isul proposed the Galactic Hybrid Accord, a framework for ethical genetic exchange between compatible species. The accord had strict rules. No forced participation. Full legal protections. Children must be raised with knowledge of both cultures. Worth measured by merit, not bloodlines. Every principle that Nari had insisted on 18 years ago became galactic law. On the day the accord was signed, Nari stood in the reconstructed Crimson Arena. It was no longer a place of death. It had been transformed into a training facility and memorial. The skeleton of the Apex Guardian stood preserved in the center, a reminder of how everything had begun. Her youngest daughter, a 6-year-old named Yuna, ran up to her. The girl had inherited her mother's dark hair and her father Junho's tactical mind. "Grandmother says you're famous," Yuna said. "Is that true?" "I suppose I am," Nari admitted. "Though I'm not sure why. I just did what needed to be done." "You killed the Guardian. Everyone knows that story." "I did. But that's not the important part." "What's the important part?" Nari knelt down to her daughter's level. "The important part was what I chose to do after. I could have walked away, taken my payment, and left. But I stayed. I helped. I built something new, instead of just destroying something old." Yuna thought about this seriously. "Building is harder than fighting, isn't it?" "Much harder, but much more important." Emperor Quan joined them, along with Lord Junho. Over the years, the three of them had formed an unusual family. Not traditional by any culture's standards, but it worked. The children knew all three as parents, respected all three equally. "The delegation from Earth has arrived," Quan said. "They want to celebrate the Accord's signing." "More speeches?" Nari asked with a slight groan. "You're the Empress Consort," Junho teased. "I preferred being a mercenary." "You were never just a mercenary," Quan said. "You were always something more." That evening, as the celebration filled the palace, Nari found a quiet balcony overlooking the city. The lights of Valcora Prime stretched to the horizon. Somewhere in that vast city, hybrid children were being born. Human Valkorian families were building lives together. Two species were becoming one. Hana found her there. Her eldest daughter had become a proper hero after the battle at Crimson Nebula. Songs were being written about her, but she was still young enough to seek out her mother when things felt overwhelming. "I'm scared," Hana admitted. "Everyone expects so much. They call me the future of the Empire." "I know the feeling," Nari said. "When I killed the Guardian, everyone expected me to be some kind of savior. It was terrifying." "How did you handle it?" "I remembered that I was just one person doing my best. I couldn't save the entire empire by myself, but I could make one good choice at a time. And those choices added up. What if I make the wrong choices? Then you learn from them and make better ones. That's all anyone can do." They stood together watching the city. Mother and daughter, human and hybrid, past and future. "Tell me again about the day you killed the Guardian," Hana said. She had heard the story 100 times, but never tired of it. "I'll tell you something better," Nari replied. "I'll tell you about the day I chose to stay. That was harder than any fight. Harder than killing the Guardian. Harder than anything I'd ever done." "Why?" "Because fighting is instinct. But building something, committing to people and a future, that takes courage of a different kind." Hana leaned against her mother. "You know what I think?" "What?" "I think you were always going to stay. You just needed to convince yourself it was your choice." Nari laughed. "When did you get so wise?" "I learned from my mother. She killed a legendary monster and then saved an empire. I had good teachers." Years later, when historians wrote about this era, they would call it the Great Transformation. They would document how one human woman had changed the fate of an entire galactic civilization. How she had proven that genetic diversity was strength. How she had built bridges between species that had never before cooperated. But Nari always saw it differently. She had simply made one choice at a time, agreed to help when help was needed, stood firm on her principles, raised her children to value character over bloodlines. The Empire had done the rest. Now, as she watched her great-granddaughter playing in the gardens, a child who carried the genes of two species and the hopes of trillions, Nari finally understood what she had accomplished. She had not saved the Valkorian Empire by killing the Apex Guardian. She had saved it by choosing to build something new, by refusing to accept that things had to stay the way they had always been, by proving that strength came in many forms, and the strongest foundation was one built on diversity and merit. The little girl looked up at her with eyes that held wisdom from both worlds. "Tell me a story, great-grandmother." "What kind of story?" "The one about the monster." "Ah, that one. Well, it begins like this. Once, there was a creature called the Apex Guardian, the most dangerous thing in the Empire, and one day, a woman from a distant world called Earth decided to face it with nothing but a blade and her courage." The child's eyes went wide. "Did she win?" "She did. In one strike. But that's not the end of the story. That's just where it begins, and in the gardens of the palace, as the two suns of Valcora Prime set in brilliant colors, Nari told the story of how everything changed. Not just for one empire, but for an entire galaxy. Because sometimes the greatest warriors are not the ones who destroy. They are the ones who build. And that story, that legacy, would last far longer than any battle ever could.